Top of the morning to you, poop shoot. Leafs game last night. Oh yeah, and I'm back too after my last video, which took me all night to post in between minor bouts of sleeping. I couldn't sleep last night. It was weird. I find that as I get older, it's insomnia is a little more common than it used to be, but that's neither here nor there. But last night the Leafs were home to Edmonton, and by now they've been rolling. They've won 9 in a row or got points in their last 10 or 11 or whatever, and the Oilers have been struggling to some degree, but when they have Connor McDavid, you could never take them lightly because he can score numerous amounts of points on you, and that's exactly what happened to the Leafs last night. I don't know if they were overconfident or not prepared or whatever, but the Oilers just right from the outset seemed to have they were just one step ahead of the Leafs, and it wasn't that the Leafs weren't competing. The stats were all very close by the end of the game. The shot attempts, everything was very, very close together, but they just didn't seem to have that extra bit of jump that the Oilers had in it, and it saw them through the day. It did turn into a bit of a track meet in the end, especially after a bad start. By the couple minutes into the second period, the Oilers were up 3-0, and after the third goal, Freddie got pulled. A couple of the shots were good shots. One of them probably shouldn't have gone through. I think it was more of a mercy pull and sending a message to the team when Keefe chose to pull him rather than Fred's been awful. I mean, he wasn't at his best, but he wasn't terrible either. I mean, so I think it was more of that, and it worked to some degree. Not long after the Oilers scored their third goal, Spezza got the Leafs on the board, cut it to 3-1. Things were looking like, okay, maybe they'll turn this around. But then the Oilers went up 4-1, and then by the end of the second period, though, the Leafs had climbed back within 1 and got it to 4-3 on a really nice goal from Freddie Gauthier, and then a deft little redirect in front off of a hole pass, pass in the slot by Engvall. So going into the third period, it looked like the Leafs were, after getting down 3-0, we know they're very capable of coming back. They've done it quite a few times this year. And going into the third period against a team like the Oilers, who, although they have some big weapons who can score goals, as they were in this game, they're also not that reliable defensively. So it was kind of like, okay, prime time for a comeback here, right? And unfortunately, the third period didn't go all that well. The Oilers came out, and by a little over halfway through the third period, they'd added on 2 more, which made it 6-3. A power play goal by Draisaitl, and then what some are calling the goal of the year at this point by McDavid. He for their 6th goal, it was a really, really tricky, deceptive move he put on. He was all on his own, and he crossed the Leafs blue line and kind of cut across, and Riley was the only guy back, and he was watching McDavid. And the whole time, McDavid was just kind of looking back towards his own end, like monitoring things and waiting for guys to come up with him. But it was all just a ploy, and Riley fell for it, which you can't blame him. I would have too. He kind of let up and kind of relaxed a little bit because he thought McDavid wasn't going to go to the net or try anything. He was just waiting for backup, and then all of a sudden he was just yoink and around him and on the net, and then he made a huge move to the back to the glove side on Hutch, and with a nice little deke, and it really was a pretty goal, and that's the kind of guy that McDavid is. So it'd be nice if the Leafs had McDavid and Matthews and Marner. Wouldn't that be something? But yeah, it was 6-3 at that point, and then with about 9 minutes to play, 8 or 9 minutes to play, Leafs got on the power play. Matthews buried one, made it 6-4, which really did set up an interesting finish to the game because, by the time it got to 6-4, you're like, well, there could still be 8 more goals scored at this point, right? But that's the way it ended. The Leafs couldn't. They had the net empty for a while, but they couldn't, and they had power play opportunities near the end of the period as well, but they just couldn't get another one. So that's the way it ended, 6-4. It was, like I said, they just seemed to be a step behind. It wasn't a totally disappointing game. They weren't awful. like I said, all the stats were really close and stuff like that, but they just seem to just be that little bit behind the Oilers, and so I'm not too concerned. I mean, they had to lose a game at some point. You can't win all the rest of the games in the season, but it would have been nice to have. This was their hottest streak since 03-04, I think. So like they were really rolling. So it would have been nice to have kept this going for a little while longer and try and set some sort of team record or something like that. But it wasn't to be, and they'll read into this what they have to, and hopefully next game they'll be back. I think they have Winnipeg next at home sometime later this week, and hopefully they can get a new streak started. But anyways, it was definitely, no matter what, last night was definitely an entertaining game. When you have that much talent on the ice, stuff's gonna happen, and it happened. So they'll put it behind them, and we'll move on. And until next game, I bid you a great rest of the week. Toodaloo.